What's up, guys? Toad back again. Another Better Off Dead daily episode where this is mostly going to be a baseball breakdown, although I don't like the cards. There's not that much to break down in baseball. Thanks to the people who were in the chat last night for the NFL breakdown video. NFL Week 2, that video is up. You can go check that out right now. I analyzed more than half of the games on the slate probably. I have 3 plays in the NFL. 2 are today. One at 1 p.m., which I think is Cleveland Browns +3. Then I got a 4 p.m. slate game, which is Arizona Cardinals, pick 'em. And then I do have a Monday night play on the Atlanta Falcons +6, 6.5. I don't think there's any reason to really take that one right now, I wouldn't say, but I don't know, because I don't think it'll get to 7, but you never really know. And it's in no man's land, kind of, so there's not that much of a difference. But I would get at least 6, 6.5 on that one, though. But I don't think it's in danger of going away, I would hope. Let's talk about this baseball card. Well, I will also mention, though, quickly, NFL. It is a weird Week 2 slate in that this Week 2 in the NFL has the most 0-1 teams facing each other than has ever happened in the NFL before. I think there are 6 games between 0-1 teams. So the NFL is, 32 teams? So 16 of them after Week 1 are 0-1 because there were no ties. 12 of those 0-1 teams are facing each other. So there are only 4 0-1 teams who are facing 1-0 teams. That's insane. Because usually you want to look to take 0-1 teams against the 1-0 teams in Week 2 because that's where the fading the overreactions leads you. Because everybody overreacts to Week 1 in the NFL. So people are going to react and think, oh, this team that won in a really ridiculous fashion, they must be really good. This team that lost horribly must suck. So the tendency of the public, the recreational bettors, and the market has to adjust for that. They're all going to tend to come in on that team that looked way better in Week 1. So you do want to look to the 0-1 teams more. So I think I am only playing one 0-1 team against a 1-0 team in this week's slate. I think my other games are both involve 0-1 teams facing each other. All right, Major League Baseball. I don't think I have that much to say about this card, really, unfortunately, because most of this is just, I don't like it. I mean, you have this NL East battle here, which is one of the bigger games on the slate between the Mets and the Phillies. The Mets are in the wild card race right now, kind of in the thick of it. Philadelphia likely to seal up that division. They're going to win that division. So I think Philadelphia kind of has less to play for, down from -135 to -124. Public on the Mets as an underdog, though. 63% of the tickets and 78% of the cash on the Mets. So it looks like the public's coming in on the Mets. It looks like the actual money is also kind of coming in on the Mets. I'm not sure I agree with it, though, even though Philadelphia has less to play for. What's up, Johnny? Yeah, I'm definitely a degenerate. I was in here, at 2 a.m. last night, 1:30 a.m., and now I'm back again talking about these baseball games. A lot of these games don't even really matter. Not early in the morning. I gave myself some time to sleep. But the Mets, so Philly basically has the division wrapped up. So they have a little bit less to play for. So the Mets maybe will have a bit more motivation here because they're really fighting to even get into the playoffs. But as I keep saying, that also puts pressure on you. So Philadelphia is playing with less pressure in this game. So I'm not sure I would want to take the Mets in this spot. And David Peterson, his ERA does look good on the season, but his whip is worse than Christopher Sanchez's is. And Peterson's numbers, I think, are worse against Philadelphia than Sanchez's are against the Mets. So I think Philadelphia has the better of the two starting pitchers in that matchup. So that's a difficult one to really get a read on there. And then Dodgers-Braves is the other pretty big game here today. Dodgers going to win the NL West. I don't think there's any question about that. But Atlanta is also in the wild card race here. They are fighting against the Mets, trying to get into the wild card spot here. Dodgers public as a road slight underdog sort of here. 73% of tickets, similar to the Mets actually. 73% of tickets coming in on the Dodgers, 89% of the cash on the Dodgers. Dodgers public. What do I think about AJ Puke? Is he even still in the league? I don't know. I haven't seen his name in a while. I think he got traded away from Miami. I don't even know where he is now, but yeah, he's vomit-inducingly bad. I think he's probably on some team right now in their bullpen, but I don't know where he is now. But the Dodgers, yeah, they're getting some of the public action because the public probably looks at this game and says, oh, this is a game between two good teams. The Dodgers are the slightly better team. We're getting like an underdog price here. Okay, let's take the Dodgers. I probably wouldn't do that with Walker Buehler on the mound, though. So this one, Atlanta does have more to play for than the Dodgers, but I think even though Atlanta might have a little bit more pressure on them, I don't like the starting pitching matchup for the Dodgers. Walker Buehler just has not been good since he's come back from whatever that break was during 2022, 2023, whatever. He's been really bad this year, so I would not want anything to do with him. Charlie Morton, even though he's a really old pitcher, he is still a mainstay, and his numbers against the Dodgers actually aren't really that bad. Neither of these pitchers have bad numbers against the opposing hitters, so I kind of lean Atlanta in that one, but not going to be a play. And I do lean to San Francisco. In San Diego, San Francisco. San Diego, I think very likely is going to get one of the wild cards. Although you never really know because the wild card race is kind of jam-packed in the National League right now. But I think San Diego's probably likely to be one of them. But you got San Diego, you got Arizona, you got Atlanta, the Mets. Like, they're all in the hunt right now. I think only 3 of those 4 teams are going to get in. If I remember correctly, that's how it works. I forget. Martin Perez is pitching for San Diego. They're down from -114 to -113. They're a public road favorite here with what looks like some reverse line movement going against San Diego. So I don't agree with the San Diego side in this one. 69% of the tickets and 62% of the cash on them. Market indicators look like they're all indicating towards San Francisco. And with Martin Perez, I kind of agree with it. Martin Perez is not a very good pitcher, and I don't think his stats against San Francisco are anything to write home about either. I would have to look. I'm not going through and looking at all the starting pitching, like batter versus pitcher stats here live on the show. But Perez has not been good this season, as you can see. Very high whip, especially 1.5. That's not good at all. Mediocre stats against San Francisco. They do have a big sample size against them, but it isn't like all of their hitters. It's a chunk of the hitters that have been around for a lot longer, the guys who have seen him before. But his stats are okay against San Francisco, and he has actually been good since he's been traded to San Diego, but I think a lot of that might be the Petco factor, where it's one of the best pitching parks in the league, so that can really help like kind of turn around a pitcher's stats quite a bit. So I think that's probably what's going on with Martin Perez. I don't think he's all of a sudden a much better pitcher, although there is that effect where when you go from a team that's not going to win, like the Pirates, which, by the way, is going to be my one play today, which I'll talk about in a minute. I'm on a losing Pirates team today. Martin Perez goes from that to being on a contender at San Diego, so that may have pumped him up a bit too. But I think that factor kind of wears off. Yeah, you like the Diamondbacks, Jacob? Yeah. I mean, I went against them yesterday. I probably wouldn't go against them today with Zach Gallen against DL Hall. I don't trust DL Hall very much at all, so I think Diamondbacks probably in an okay bounce back spot here after they got wrecked yesterday, which I guess I should talk about how I did yesterday as well. I'm all over the place having to bounce between this and the chat and everything. Martin Perez, though, yeah, I think probably he was pumped up to start pitching for a team that actually wins, and he has been good since he's been on San Diego. Probably a combination of all those factors I just mentioned, but I don't love him in this spot. And Landon Roop, I don't know how you pronounce his name, is a young pitcher who's pitching for the Giants here, and he's got a decent ERA this season. This, I believe, is his rookie season, but he was mostly coming out of the bullpen, so I don't think he's really used to pitching like a starter's workload, really. As you can see, he was making all these bullpen appearances. Then I think he made one start in his last outing against Milwaukee here, and he actually did well. Again, only allowing 2 earned runs against a pretty good Milwaukee lineup, so he has not pitched badly over the course of the season, even though his whip is probably too high. So he's just putting too many men on base via the walk, especially. He's not allowing that many hits at all, so it is mostly by the walk. So I don't know if I trust Roop either, so it's not going to be a play for me, but the market does seem to be indicating on the side of the Giants. A couple of weird matchups here. Baltimore-Detroit has a situation where they're both fighting for playoff positioning. Baltimore, I think, is unlikely to not make the playoffs. They're in the top wild card spot right now, so they're sitting decently. Detroit is on the verge of getting one of the wild card spots. I think they're currently out of it right now, behind Minnesota, I believe. Behind Kansas City and Minnesota. I think Detroit and then Boston, and then I guess Seattle, and a couple of those other teams are the teams that are out right now. So Detroit does have more to play for here. But I'm not really looking at the side on this one. I was actually kind of looking at the total in this one. And that's only because Cade Povich and Keeter Montero, neither of those pitchers have been seen before at all by the opposing hitters. So even though they don't have good stats this season, you look at their ERAs are terrible. But I think that was partially because they both went through like bad stretches. I think they've both been pitching a little bit better recently. So I thought about maybe taking an under in this one just because you have that unfamiliarity aspect. And you have the fact that I think both of these pitchers are a little bit better than their stats would suggest, because their stats suggest that they're awful, and I don't think they're that awful. Montero especially, I think, has started really turning it around recently. When you have hitters that haven't faced these pitchers before ever, tends to be a bit of an advantage to the pitcher. So I kind of was leaning to an under in that one, and I think the same thing went for this interleague matchup between Cincinnati and Minnesota. That's another spot where neither of those pitchers have been seen before by the opposing hitters. Rhett Lauder, I think, has only made 2 starts so far in his major league career, and his ERA is like 0.5 or something like that, or maybe he's made 3 starts. He's only allowed 1 earned run so far across all of his starts, although he's been too wild. He's walked too many guys. It's kind of the one reason I don't want to really get involved here, but Rhett Lauder has put together a very, very low ERA so far. He has not been bad at all. And David Festa on the other side has started to kind of struggle, putting too many men on base. His stats not really as good as Lauder's so far, but Cincinnati has never seen him. Minnesota's never seen Cincinnati. So even though this is a spot where Cincinnati basically is out of it and has nothing to play for, and Minnesota is trying to maintain that last wild card spot. So Minnesota, you can see on the side, the money line has gone way up on Minnesota, but they are also public because they are the team with the better record, and they're the team that has something to play for, trying to keep that wild card spot. But Rhett Lauder may have the ability to silence Minnesota's bats to some extent, whereas Minnesota, I mean, Festa, because he hasn't been seen by Cincinnati, could have a little bit of an edge there as well. So I was thinking about maybe an under in this game too, but it's not something I want to do in either of these games. It looks like both games have public overs with a little bit slightly more of the cash than the tickets on the over in both of those cases. It's not something I'm totally interested in. And then I looked at Houston Anaheim under very briefly too, kind of catching my eye, but I don't think I want to do it. And it looks like the market is totally flipped on this again, with the 57% of the tickets on the over and 84% of the cash on the over in that one. I don't want to do it, but Ronel Blanco, the cheater, the pine tar handed man, is pitching for Houston here, and he continues to pitch pretty decently. Yeah, Jose, what's up, man? Jump in, man, and start arguing with me live on the show. Yeah, I have not given my actual bet yet, but I'm wrong about 40-something% of the time. I profit. You profit by going like 53%, man. So you get shit on a lot for having bad bets. Well, you don't want to make a bad bet. You want to avoid bad bets, but you're still going to lose a lot of bets. You want to identify which ones are bad versus which ones are losers. You know, if that makes sense. Like, if it's a bad bet, you're just way off and your handicap was totally wrong. But you have situations where your handicap was basically correct, but you still lose the game. So you have to identify the difference. Ronel Blanco, I mean, he has really good numbers against Anaheim. Anaheim's bats basically suck. So I would expect Blanco to be able to hold them down. And Caden Dana is a guy that I've talked about on the show. He's a rookie for Anaheim. He's a guy with very good stuff, and he had a really good major league debut, or a pretty good major league debut. But he's been a bit too wild, which is kind of his problem. And then in his second start, he just got completely knocked around by the Texas Rangers at Texas. Texas put up a bunch of offense against him and ruined an under that I had in that game. So I don't want to go back to the well in this one, even though I think Dana should bounce back from that because he's still a rookie pitcher. Houston has never seen him before, but Houston does have a really good offense too. So even though he might have a little bit of an edge there against Houston's offense, I don't quite want to do it. And it's really his wildness. His wildness is really what I don't love in that one. Yeah, Jose, I should probably do some more of those fundamental videos. There are always bets of the day, and I think you can like learn something from me, just like talking about what I think about all these bets, even though I need to like kind of straighten this out because I'm kind of all over the place here. This is just like my thoughts are all over the place, and I'm just speaking basically as I think. But yeah, I do have one betting 101 video that's out on my channel, which is one of the most viewed videos on the channel, where I kind of talk about all the basics of that. I could maybe do some more and maybe have them more focused on like specific aspects of it or specific sports or something like that. We could see. And then I don't know if I was going to talk about any other game here. I do also lean to the Toronto side. They're sitting at a minus 118 favorite. This is a game between two teams that are basically not going to do anything this year. They're both going to go home, St. Louis and Toronto. I believe Toronto's on the verge of sweeping this series, so I tend to not like to be on teams that are on the verge of the sweep because the other team tends to have a little bit extra motivation just to try to avoid that sweep. But in this case, the public does not like Toronto. 70% of the tickets are on St. Louis, maybe just because they recognize the starting pitcher's name more. And Mikolas, he's been around for a lot longer. Don't know who Yariel Rodriguez is because you look at their stats. Both of them have not very good-looking stats, but Mikolas' stats are worse than Rodriguez's are. 52% of the cash on the Toronto side, however. And Mikolas, his stats are just ugly. Just his recent stats are bad. His stats on the season are really terrible. I don't like Mikolas at all in this spot, and he doesn't have good numbers against Toronto's hitters either. So it's kind of like the triple whammy here. I mean, these stats are terrible. 5.55 ERA. The 1.31 whip is actually lower than I expected it to be, but he's been bad recently too. 6.39 ERA in the month of August, 13.5 in his two starts in this month so far, and he couldn't even do anything against Seattle, who is not a very good hitting team at all. He only went 6 innings combined over those two starts. These numbers, yeah, I mean, there's nothing really good about these numbers. Even though his overall stats, he actually has not walked a lot of guys over the course of the season at all, but he's allowed way too many hits, 180 and whatever that was, 150, 160 innings pitched. Toronto, only 4 of their hitters have seen him before, but they do have a 375 average and 965 OPS against him. George Springer specifically actually wrecks this guy, so that's a situation where you could actually maybe start looking at some props and maybe go over on some George Springer props, which here's maybe a fundamental one. I don't talk about props a lot, but in baseball, playing overs in baseball and like some of these like player props, you never really get value on playing overs as far as like the like number of hits that they're going to get specifically, or like especially playing like, will this player hit a home run? Like that's never a good way to go because you never get good odds on that. And everybody likes that home run prop because they want to see it happen, but it doesn't happen often enough to justify the odds that you're getting. The way you want to play these props, if you see this, like a hitter like Springer who's done really, really well against Mikolas, the way that you want to play an over prop on a hitter like that is to take the total prop over whatever the total is, which is, I believe, runs. I think it's runs plus hits plus RBIs is the prop that you want to look for there, because it spreads it out. Because those other props, like if they walk, they kind of like ruin the prop for you. Whereas in this case, if they walk, they still get on base, so they still have a chance. There's a chance that they walk and an RBI gets scored. They get an RBI on it if it's with bases loaded. But also if they walk, there's obviously a chance they're going to score a run there because they get on base. So that's the better way to look at those Major League Baseball props. I could set up my channel a little bit better so that video is easier to find. Why not? All right, and then Yariel Rodriguez is pitching for Toronto. He is still a rookie. He had some good starts earlier in the season, but he's been not very good for a while. 4.42 ERA, 1.32 whip, not great. His strikeout walk number is terrible. Really, it's just this walk number is awful. The rest of his stats are actually pretty good. He doesn't allow many hits. He's striking out a decent amount of guys. And he may be returning to form a little bit if we just look at what he's done recently. I don't know why they didn't allow him to go more pitches in this Minnesota game. He only went 3 innings, and they took him out after 57 pitches. And maybe just because as the season is winding down, he's pitched like most of the season, but he had breaks in the middle of the season where he wasn't in the starting rotation, so I don't think it's that either. He hasn't made that many starts this season as far as like, oh, he's wearing down, we should shut him down. So I don't know what exactly happened in that Minnesota game, because he was obviously pitching well enough to stay in the game. And then his most recent start, he actually had a pretty good start against the Atlanta Braves. More impressive because it is the Braves offense there. 6-1 strikeout walk ratio. There are only 2 hits allowed and 1 earned run allowed in 5 innings. That's pretty good. 1.13 ERA this month over those 2 appearances. So he is pitching a little bit better as of late. And of course, as I'm going to say, he's a rookie, so the St. Louis Cardinals have never seen him before. So I do think Rodriguez does have a bit of an edge there because these hitters are not familiar with him yet, and they're going to have to get used to him. That familiarity aspect does play into that read there, that handicap. That's not my play, however, though. My actual play is going to be on the Pittsburgh Pirates, which seems like it's going to be a little bit dangerous because they're playing against a team that is battling for one of the wild card spots, Kansas City. But I still think I am going to do this. Pittsburgh, they're out of it, but I like this spot for Pittsburgh to actually get the win in this game. Kansas City, yeah, they're battling for a wild card, but look at the wild card standings. They're sitting pretty nicely right now in the wild card positioning. They're 3.5 games up of Minnesota, so they're not really in danger of dropping out of one of those wild card spots right now. And looking at their schedule, they're on the verge of a sweep. So I think they might take Pittsburgh a little bit lightly here because Pittsburgh sucks, and it's not Paul Skeens on the mound for Pittsburgh here. So he's like the one guy that gets all the attention in Pittsburgh's rotation. Kansas City has beaten them up over the course of this series, outscoring them 13-4 over the first 2 games. So again, I think Kansas City could maybe take their foot off the gas a little bit and overlook Pittsburgh here and take them lightly. And look who Kansas City has up next, man. You wouldn't have thought not too long ago that this would have been a huge matchup, but it is. They have the Detroit Tigers coming up next, and that's a divisional matchup, but not only a divisional matchup, but Detroit is, I think, the team that's closest to them outside of the wild card race. So Minnesota's the last team in, and Detroit is the first team out after that. So that is a big series between Kansas City and Detroit. Divisional matchup, and it has pretty major wild card implications. So Kansas City could be looking ahead to that, man. They could overlook Pittsburgh in this spot. And if you look at what happened in the game yesterday, Kansas City won the game 5-1, but Kansas City used a lot more of their relief pitching than Pittsburgh did. Pittsburgh kind of saved a lot of their better relievers, even though Pittsburgh's bullpen isn't very good. Neither of these teams have great bullpens. Pittsburgh's, I think, is probably worse, but Pittsburgh only used 3 of their relief pitchers yesterday, including Mlodzinski, who's kind of more of a longer relief guy, whereas Kansas City used a bunch of their better relievers, like the back end of their relief pitching staff, basically to get that job done and win that game yesterday. So I think Pittsburgh's bullpen is actually in the better rest spot here, with more of their pitchers should be available in this one. More of their better relief pitchers are more rested coming into this game because Kansas City used more of theirs yesterday. And then looking at the starting pitching matchup, it looks like it could be a pitcher's duel because Brady Singer is having a pretty good season for Kansas City, 3.42 ERA. The 1.25 whip is a little bit higher than what I would like to see. Over the course of the season, pretty good numbers, 153 strikeouts and 46 walks. That's a decent ratio. 158 hits allowed, 163 in a third innings. Nothing to really complain about. Maybe the walk's just a little bit too high, as I am saying his whip is a little bit too high, but still really good stats over the course of the season. But he's not been quite as good in the last couple of months. Granted, he has faced a bunch of really good offenses. If you take Cincinnati out of there, the rest of these offenses are pretty formidable for the most part. But he also just hasn't been pitching well for the most part against them, even though the 32-5 strikeout walk ratio kind of suggests that his August wasn't as bad as it appears, but he still got really hit around. 39 hits allowed in 27 2/3. That tells me he was putting too many pitches over the plate. He was obviously way too hittable. 5.53 ERA that month, not good. And then coming into this month, he hasn't totally turned it around, although against 2 more pretty good offenses here. 4.22 ERA this month and only 6-5 strikeout walk ratio, only going 10 2/3 across 2 starts this month. So I think Singer, he might be losing a little bit of steam as we get towards the end of the season here. And his numbers against Pittsburgh, we don't have that much to work with here, only 27 at-bat sample size, but they've done decently against him offensively with a 296 average, only a 655 OPS, which is a little bit low. They don't have many extra base hits off of him at all, and only 1 walk, but they've been able to hit him, and that's kind of been his problem recently. He's been giving up too many hits. So Pittsburgh, they at least have some familiarity with him. He is the pitcher who's been pitching worse recently and could be the one who's more tired out of these 2 pitchers. So I like what we're getting out of Pittsburgh here, man. I'm returning to what I was doing early in the season. Jared Jones is back, baby. I've avoided playing on him since he's come back. He was either, I don't know if they sent him to the minors or if he was just injured. He was pitching so well early in the season that I don't think he would have gotten sent down. I think he was injured, and then he came back in late August. He struggled in his first start back against Chicago, but then he faced Chicago again right after that, so the Chicago hitters just saw him and should have had a little bit of an advantage. Nope, Jared Jones did pretty well in that start, and then he improved even more with a dominant start against Washington, even though it's a terrible Washington lineup, but still, it's good to see him kind of returning back to form with that really nice start. Over the month of September here in 2 starts, 13-1 strikeout walk ratio, 10 hits allowed, and 13 1/3. He is pitching well again. I think he's rounding back into form. He is the pitcher who probably has more left in the tank because he was out in July and most of August, most of those 2 months, and just came back. So I like Jones a lot more in this scenario here, in this starting pitching matchup. Over the course of the entire season, he's been very good, especially for a 23-year-old rookie. 3.82 ERA, 1.11 whip, 115-31 strikeout walk ratio, 89 hits allowed, and 181 1/3 innings pitched. Those are all really excellent stats, man. The walks may be slightly too high, but those are stats that you get out of like a seasoned, like really good starter, basically, with a pretty high strikeout rate, not allowing many hits. So Jared Jones, even though Paul Skeens gets all the attention, I think Jones is kind of the real deal here, and up against Kansas City, they've never faced him before. So it's another one of those situations that I like where you have a starting pitcher who has good stuff. We know that he does. He's kind of proven himself now at the major league level. Kansas City's hitters have yet to see him, so they are not familiar with what he throws. They're going to have to get used to him in an actual game environment. So I think Jones should have a bit of an edge early on in this game. So I like all of it, man. That's why it's a full game play on Pittsburgh here. I like the scheduling situation as far as Pittsburgh is concerned. I like the starting pitching edge that they have. They don't have the better offense, but their bullpen is also in better shape coming into this game as well. So I like Pittsburgh. That's the one play that I have in Major League Baseball today. The market doesn't appear to be in total agreement with me on this, although we could see it maybe shift. Kansas City is obviously going to be public. They've been public throughout this entire series. They're the team with the better record. They're the team that has something to play for. So 67% of the tickets are on them. 72% of the cash right now with the line looking like it's just kind of sitting around minus 105 for Pittsburgh. I think minus 108 was the best I saw out there. We could maybe see this shift. Either way you look at it, I am still fading where the public is in this one. I think the situation dictates it. It was the best situation that I saw on the board. I do think Kansas City, like I said, could take a little bit of a step back, maybe having won the other 2 games in the series and having a big series upcoming and having a decent padding in the wild card race right now. That's the one play that I have in baseball, man. Pittsburgh minus 108. That's going to do it for me for this video here. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Go check out my NFL Week 2 video. NFL Week 2 is starting in like an hour and a half, man. It's going to be crazy. I want to get some wins. It's got to do better than Week 1, where I only went 1-2. And I got to bounce back from a slight losing day yesterday, where I went 2-2-1 yesterday. 1-2-1 in college football. College football didn't do that great for me. We got to bounce back from it. There was something specific I was going to say about what happened in college football, but I cannot even remember what it was going to be. Oh, I was going to mention the baseball play. I won on baseball yesterday. That was an easy win, or at least it was, and it should have been, with the Milwaukee Brewers. I handicapped that starting pitching matchup quite well. Brandon Pfaadt was out of the game after like an inning. I think he allowed 8 runs in like an inning plus or something in that game. He was horrendous in that game, and it looked like it was just Milwaukee was just going to totally run away with this thing. And if you played the first 5 innings, you won that one really easily too. Milwaukee was winning 12-0, I think, at the end of the 5th inning. They were up 13-0 going into the bottom of the 6th inning. And then all of a sudden it was 13-8 going into the 9th inning, getting a little bit dicey there. I mean, Milwaukee should have easily won that game, and their bullpen almost threw it away, but they didn't, and Milwaukee padded the lead in the 9th inning, won 15-8. But when you're winning 13-0, it should not even be as close as that. But that was what I was going to talk about. Still got the win on Milwaukee. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, man. Yeah, I should put a girl on, yeah. I mean, if you follow my bets, you'll be doing as well or as poorly as I'm doing. I'm not having the best year, as I've admitted repeatedly on this show, but my stretch over the last, week and a half or so has been pretty decent. Yesterday wasn't great. We're going to turn it around. Football season is in swing now. It's going to happen. I'm going to get back. I'm going to wind up with a winning year this year anyway. I can feel it. Let's do it. I'm Tower Gang Toad. Follow the Tower Gang podcast. What's up, guys? What's up, Scott? What's up, Tommy? I'm getting out of here right now. I did not watch or bet UFC. I very rarely bet UFC. It has to be a situation where the public is like really hyping some fighter, and I think that there's like an advantage in going against that fighter. The last time I did it, I won, and I don't remember. It was like way earlier this year, and I don't even remember which fight it was. That's going to do it. I mean, you can probably go back and find it in like my tweets, or I can go on Action Network and try to find it. It's probably logged somewhere in there. Follow the Tower Gang podcast, everyone. I'm Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. Tower Gang, we're around. I mean, you might be watching this on the Tower Gang channel right now. Go sign up, subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Tower Gang, and you get bonus content. We're on every Wednesday night, man. The most offensive comedy that you'll ever see, but we also have bonus pre-shows, post-shows, and you get to hang out with us in a Telegram. I think there might be some extra like merch access maybe. Go to toplobster.com and check out his merch as well. Find some merch. And check out flapper.net as well, because I shout those guys out every time. Check out their political shitposting blog and historical political shitposting YouTube channel. And I guess, well, they also talk about hot ladies, and they talk about sports as well. So they run the gamut of the best interests on earth. So peace out, man. Have a good day. Thanks for hanging out, guys.